Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
Very good morning. Welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And joining me this morning is that eminent legal personality, Mr. Govind Dasri, and Mr. Kirti Tenakon, who is the convener of the
Anti-Corruption Front.
Thank you very much. And what a day that you've both chosen, who've accepted our invitation to be here. I'll start with you, Kirti. The bond matter, we've got public opinion has got a result of sorts. It's only to a point, but still a start has been made. At the same time, we have been made aware of various concerns on a judgment issued by the Supreme Court, no less, in connection with the importation of coal. Now, during the Rajapaksa government, I actually wrote about 11 articles over a period of roughly the same period, because there was concern as to the import of coal at that time too. Now we have Yapalani, and there is apparently still trouble to do with coal imports. What's going on? What's wrong with this thing?
I think, this Yahapalne government is coming into trouble in various lines at the moment. As you said very correctly, the treasury bond issue was much talked about. We haven't seen, the results was we expected, but to some extent we are happy. At least we was able to, the public pressure has worked out. But in this case, coal is always an issue during the Rajapaksa regime, and we saw unbelievable amount of corruption as taking place in Lanka coal company, and importation and the procurement, the all issues were under very much under score during to just because of these irregularities taken place. Now we are having a Supreme Court judgment based on this, saying unbelievable amount, to be very specific, according to the Attorney General, it's 1.8 billion Sri Lankan rupees. The Supreme Court says in line with the decision in line with that the number. Of course, we are having an issue with the corruption and bribery, especially in related to this. The only thing what I want to say at this particular moment, we are the Ministry of Power and Energy in a definite crisis. They have to answer the people what went wrong, and how the government should say how we are going to overcome the issue of corruption at the very, very high levels.
I mean, it is astonishing as to what went on, because I've got a set of documents here. This is publicly available documentation here. It says here, one of the first things that I've been forced to notice really is the fact that the Supreme Court has made something a very important point here. It says here that it is essential to the maintenance of the rule of law that every organ of state must act within the limits of its power and carry out the duty imposed upon it in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution and the law. The court cannot close its eyes and allow the actions of the state or the public authority to go unchecked in its operations in the public interest. I think that was a very, very critical comment coming from the Supreme Court. Just to put to hold these public officials, just to remind them that they can't be doing things and expect the court to be blind just because of some small of a procedural or technicality, which in this case I think the petitioner is a company based and incorporated outside of Sri Lanka, and also that the affidavit signed by the CEO or the MD of that company was made in Singapore, and without, I think it hadn't been endorsed or didn't carry the endorsement or the counter chop of the Sri Lanka High Commission there. But those were technicalities, but nevertheless the Supreme Court went into the matter. What do you say, Mr. Dayasri?
Beautiful words, because what they said very shortly is that technicalities should be set aside or kept away and deal with substantive issues where public funds are concerned. I mean, this is just after Mahendran's case where public funds were very much an issue. And I think it's very beautiful. They start off on a basis that I think is very, very laudable, because what is important in justice and equity is to know what is the correct the truth, and ascertainment of the truth is vital. But I must say, I'm very disappointed with this judgment, because it is like, if I may say Lewis Carroll's words, curioso and curioso. It's like Alice in Wonderland. You start off brilliantly, say that all these technicalities are not relevant, and then what do? You hold on the technicalities at the end and say there's no locus standi, that they have no right of action. So what is the value of this judgment? It's not a judgment, it's a sermon.
But I'm looking at another way. They say that there's no locus standi and so on, but they also give direction that unfortunately there's a word again that is a little bit ambiguous there, because it's the final order says that the Lanka Coal Company may cancel the tender.
It should have been shall. It should be shall, because you see, our Supreme Court still is very strong. Don't underestimate our Supreme Court. We got some wonderful people there. Like I think it's time that we name names, because they're such great men. Chitrasiri, Prasanna Jayawardena, Priyanta Jayawardena, Eva Vanasundara, very strong judge, Chandra Ekanayaka, Sisira Diablo. We have wonderful people, and these people to me are as good as Neville Samarakon, or take for example Dheeraratna, Ranjit Dheeraratna, A.R.B. Amarasinghe, Mark Fernando. We have giants, and they are still giants. But why do we have to be so feeble and weak in this judgment? Because if you look at it, no finger is pointed at any public servant. And
well, this is the problem, isn't it? But my other issue is, should a government that has been elected on a promise of a solemn undertaking, 47 organizations, including the mainstream political parties in this country, came together to chase out corruption, political patronage and nepotism, and should it be fair and proper and fit for this government, who's been so involved in promoting the cause of Yahapaline, to be so blatantly involved in fixing a tender?
Precisely, because this is not only a question of government, this is where the judiciary is involved. The judiciary should checkmate these things. They have left it wide open. In fact, may I just take one or 2 points in this case. Now, if you look at a brilliant letter sent by, I think I really admire this boy, Maitri Gunaratna. He sent a strong letter saying that the SCAPC, that's the SCAP has no business to be, he says, no bidder shall contact any other person or organization involved in any matter relating to bid from the time of opening of bids to the time of contract is awarded.
Yes.
Now, this
That's
is a
red card at the very beginning.
Precisely, red card delivered to the Ministry of Power and Secretary, Ministry of Power and Energy. Now, Ministry of Power and Energy puts a letter, or probably to the contrary, which the Supreme Court has never disclosed. Now,
yes. This secretary, what's his name?
Bhattagoda,
Dr. Bhattagoda,
should certainly be investigated. I'm not saying there's nothing on record, but his conduct is, to me, deservingly investigated.
Indeed, it's astonishing, because the chairman of Lanka Coal, writing to the secretary, it takes him, in a way, points out the obvious to him. He says that I'm in receipt of your letter dated the 30th of June, and I've drawn my attention to the first paragraph. And the chairman of Lanka Coal, Maitri Gunaratna, then says, I am shocked that SCAP-C, which has carefully scrutinized the Lanka Coal, the LCC bid document, has not seen clause 5.5 of that document, which says, subject to clause 5.2, no bidder shall contact Lanka Coal Company or any other person or organization involved on any matter relating to its bid from the time of the opening of the bid
Precisely, and
to the award.
Precisely, and what the Supreme Court says is the same. But SCFCC should have proceeded to reject the bid of the second respondent, the 22nd respondent, for violating clause 555 of ITB.
Yes.
Instead, it evaluated the bids based on the recommendations of the TC, taking into consideration letters sent by the 22nd respondent.
It's a complete travesty.
And Batakoda is a member of that board.
Yeah,
Now I think
no, this is the way they have manipulated the whole tenders during the last 10 years. They have gone the same way of doing manipulating, try to manipulate the whole thing. But this luckily came out. I think we are having a very good public litigation case in front of the Supreme Court within no time.
And also, what is shocking is, they are pointing the finger at natural justice and making accusations against Justice Hector Japa, one of the most honourable men you can find. He was in the Attorney General's Department, he was in the Supreme Court, now he is on the tender boards. No man can point a finger and say that he is wrong. But now what does it say? SCB says, it clearly says that the PAB was invited by the petitioner to be present for a hearing before the PAB on the 3rd. It did not hear the petitioner in view of certain allegations set out in a newspaper as to the integrity and the impartiality of the members of the PAB. In other words, somebody in a newspaper has made allegations against the PAB. Now comes the interesting thing. However, the Ministry of Power and Energy responded to the said article and claimed that the said allegations were not made by the second respondent. Who is the second respondent?
Dr. Batakoda.
So I think, I'm not saying that Batakoda, you can make any allegations presently, but a man who should be inquired. If you remember, for us, we had cases where Secretary Jayasundara was asked to go by Sarath Silva. I am no friend of Sarath Silva, but they were very bold and courageous judges. Indeed. Now here, nothing. What do you do? In the end of the day, they find that there is no, the petitioner has no locus standi. They first say that this locus standi is not necessary. Then they say that he doesn't have locus standi, so then he has no right to file action. And then they say, may, gives all discretion. Yeah. I think this is time Maitri Gunratna must rise again and come back fighting hard to see.
Should the board of Lanka call vote and vote to seek the clarity of the Supreme Court?
I think Supreme Court has done something even more. They have given even any private watchdog to enter the arena. This is a time, I think that is the beauty
because
of this judgment.
It gets even more beautiful as it goes on, this judgment, because it says here, having given my anxious consideration to the contentious issues raised on behalf of all the parties, I consider the act or decision made by SCAPC was outside its jurisdiction and therefore becomes null and void for all purposes, including therefore the award of that tender. So on that hand it says it's null and void, but then comes this little bit, this little word. Isn't this English language so quaint? Is this judgment only in English language? Do we have a Sinhalese judgment too?
No, this is only in English language. That gives a wide discretion to the minister and the secretary.
Indeed.
And the Lanka board.
But wouldn't it have been better if the word, instead of may, shouldn't it have been shall?
It should have been. There is no question of better. This is where I say this is a weak judgment. This is a poor judgment. I say this, I'm going to the Supreme Court in a matter of 2 hours, 3 hours.
I hope you won't get into trouble.
I don't care, but I think this is the time we have to come forward and say, because in the Supreme Court are very strong men. They have always been strong. Don't devalue our courts. They are good.
Yeah.
But
no, I think definitely we are having faith of the court for sure, and we are now considering the public litigation case against this, and I think the organizations like us are really concerned about it. We had continuous consultations now. Definitely we are going to question this issue once again in front of courts.
I think where weak people are there, you have to take them to the laundry.
I've got an SMS from a regular viewer who says it's a clearly known fact that if people achieve a status without working hard for it, they don't know the value of the job. RW was wrongly given the Prime Ministership without working for it. Now, knowing that he will not make it again, he is maximizing the use of his job as Prime Minister. A very serious statement.
Very serious, because RW, Ranil Wickremesinghe, did not even want to be the. He didn't put forward his candidature even. He's come through the back door, and in this, what was really in favor of him was his integrity. The Mahendran's issue shattered it.
Do you know, Mr. Darcy, I shudder in my private moments. I shudder to think what would have happened to the entire bond issue had it been a Prime Minister who actually commanded the majority in the House, all on his own, by his own party. Had that been, he would have been a law almost unto himself. I shudder to think of the consequences, because right up until the last day, the 30th of June, the Prime Minister was ever so insistent that it was his choice or no choice, and it was left to our President to step in and to take decisive, incisive action.
Actually, I'm no supporter of the President, but I really admire him. In this particular case, and even case of internationalizing judges, he's forthright, he puts a point and he's consistent. And he has national interest. In a way, I think the SLFP has its ear more to the ground than the UNP. They are up in the clouds. And this is the difference between Wickremesinghe and Sirisena. Sirisena came undoubtedly through the help of Wickremesinghe, but he has emerged.
Yeah.
He's becoming a force. And he is, let me say this clearly, in the Mahendran affair, he has brought himself a lot of credit. And I'm not a supporter of him. I did not vote for him. I didn't vote for anybody for that matter. But the fact is, you have to give a man who's trying to cleanse society his due place and recognition. And to that extent, I'm unhappy with Mahinda Rajapaksa. During his time also, there was a governor, there were many allegations. Everything was swept under the carpet. I mean, neither Mahendran nor Cabral should be considered in any way dishonest, because if dishonesty or any irregularity, it must be proved, they must be deemed innocent. But why are we not having inquiries?
But I think, Mr. Darcy, to be fair, we are not talking about an element of criminality. What we are saying is, when you are such a professed, claimed to be stellar banker, and you've been imported from outside to come and run the affairs of our central bank in this country, then you're special, or that's the perception. And when you're special, and as a professional banker, you do owe something called a professional duty of care. And that duty of care is to the people of this country, and to ensure that their monies are safe and sound, not to be squandered around. If we were talking about this coal tender, 1.8 billion. The Auditor General, no less a person than the Auditor General, has said that the initial loss on those two bonds was 1.8 billion. That's 3.6 billion. We can sit here and calculate all these losses. There's 8 billion given to some Chinese company because they couldn't work out the contracts. And this is the same highway contract. The Prime Minister said that we saved 30 billion. Yes. Absolute tosh. It wasn't 30 billion. It was because they reduced the scope of contract. This is the third floor. But we've got another 4 floors up here. In the construction of this building, if the contractor didn't build the other 4 floors on top, it would have cost our company that much less. That's not a saving because of stiffer negotiation. That's because you changed the contract.
I think the word you're using, you didn't use, is fiduciary duties. There is a responsibility.
That's right.
That is the word, that's a precise word. But in this respect, even to that extent, I think there should be an inquiry to find out whether even the fiduciary duties were not fulfilled. I think that's something which the country owes to any person held suspicious. But I think on holding the inquiry, you must have a finding, and that finding should be given publicity, and such people should be completely exterminated from the holding office of any sort. I think those are things that the civil rights movements must take this up. And
I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Dayasiri. I mean, the issue here, now we are having the Public Administration Secretary, Mr. Dadalagi, who was covering up all the information available, what happened during the 2015 presidential elections in related to the public officers who did misuse, manipulated the public resources, public money for that matter. And that report, Ranuge report, has gone under the carpet, and there's no action. I'm confirming there's no action whatsoever so far during the last 17 months taken on these people who did such a abuse of state properties, misuse the state properties. And we are having that case in one hand, and now we are having the call tender. The issues were down there. Some public officers were named in this judgment. Of course, we know who are the SCAP members down there. The country should take actions based on the national interest, and that's the only way out of this crisis, especially if we are talking about the bribery and corruption.
But true, Kirti, but there was this opportunity in the Supreme Court. They failed to take it. They started off beautifully. It's like Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah.
It starts off marvelously.
Well, it was the same under the Rajapaksa years, if I remember rightly. The question that was posed by the people who were opposed to this was whether the former Treasury Secretary was able to withdraw his affidavit given to the Supreme Court that he would not seek public office again. Now, I believe that Supreme Court didn't really answer that question. What they did say was that under a different section, the President had every right to appoint whoever he deemed fit. Now, they didn't address the issue whether, once given an affidavit, whether you can withdraw it.
Yeah, I mean, judiciary has got, it's a upper judiciary that has to be questioned. I mean, look at the constitution is very clear, parliamentarians can't cross parties.
Yeah.
But it's happening all the time and nobody's taking any action.
Now,
in
Britain,
just to add something to that, now the people of the country, in this case this particular company, is questioning the decision made at the cabinet. And
right.
I think during the last 6, 7, 8 years, questioning a cabinet decision in the Supreme Court was almost impossible. Or then if they did it, of course they could face the consequences like white vans for that matter. In that case, I think now we are having an environment to question these sort of issues.
I agree, Kirti, but my point is that just because we agree with that doesn't mean that our work can be compromised and be barred.
It will never be compromised, and you'll see there will be a public litigation case within no time.
Now, in Britain, we had David Cameron announce inside an hour of the Brexit result, announced that he would be stepping down and stepping off on principle. In Australia, the opposition leader walked out, conceded victory, and pledged his support to Turnbull, who is only a minority government. Do you think, Mr. Dayasri and Mr. Tennakoon, do you think that the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, who was so vociferous and adamant on the appointment of the governor of the central bank, now that the Auditor General, no less person than Auditor General, has confirmed that various things went wrong, and it appeared that that Mr. Mahendran had displayed no primary duty of care responsibilities to the people that he's supposedly serving. Do you think that our Prime Minister will step off, step down, resign,
and
go home?
We also need not only Blairs and Camerons, but we also need a Chilcot. What a strong report that is.
Indeed.
Do we have people like that? What do we have? We have this kind of feeble judgments which ends up with May.
But on the other hand, we had the 3-member committee appointed by the Prime Minister to look into the bond in March 2015. It was laughable because they didn't have the full terms of reference to go into it.
Indeed, hilarious. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens. Now, Chilcot may have taken 13 years to write the report, longer than the time that the British forces were in Iraq. But what a fine report that is! It's damning. It's not only damning on UK but also on US. I mean, you must have fearless judges. You must have independent people. Whatever it is, I think it is the people that must write. And that is where I think Kirti and his team must get into the act now and do something, because if this is what the Supreme Court is capable of doing, it is, to me, very disappointing. Because there are very strong people there. When strong people come, we have strong judgments. When weak people come, we have this kind of, starts with a glorious beginning and ends as a flop.
Do you think that it is time also for us to remember that it is because of some sort of lopsided or ill-thought-out order from a court that we have a situation in Akarai Patu where the Saudi Arabian government fully funded $15 million worth of a housing project. 500 homes is not even now occupied by the stray dogs in the area, and there are plenty of those.
Precisely because in this country we don't have sufficiently strong watchdogs. We allow things to just drag on and we forget, and why put so many things under the carpet? We must be aggressive, we must be alert, we must follow things up. Now this is a very recent judgment. I hope that necessary people, because the Supreme Court has been very sensible, they have opened doors. Now is the time.
And before we wrap up, talking about watchdogs, we do have a watchdog actually, and it goes by the name. It's called Sirasa, it's called Shakti, it's called TV1. We are the watchdogs because there is no proper watchdog. We've just become the watchdog. The people have made us the watchdog. But before I go, I want to say something. Don't you think that it is a case of noblesse oblige, where the nobility has an inherent responsibility to take care of the people who are the voiceless, who don't have the power? Isn't that what the nobility or the people who can should be doing?
Undoubtedly, because people who have the ability must come forward. That is why I feel that what I say may be even contemptuous, but I am prepared to even go to jail. I love it, because I think there's a time when we have to put this country right, and the time has come. Remember, we are a country that has defeated terrorism. There is no other, I don't think it's very difficult to this kind of corrupt, irregular practices also must be put right. And this country and its people have that strength, have that courage. And you people in the media, just give us the support. People like Kirti must get on the floor.
Kirti Tenakun, your time has come. You must act. So says Gomindasri, so says all of us. And
we have acted, and definitely we are going to act on this.
We must continue on this march forward. Well done. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being on Newsline, and thank you very much for watching Newsline. We'll see you again, same time, same place, all over again tomorrow morning with an issue that's bound to be bothering you. Thank you for watching Newsline. Take care, God bless, and have a great day.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukut Ali.